Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we uncover the leadership life hacks that help you to experience breakout performance faster and rocket to success. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbach.
Call Center Coach develops and unites the next generation of call center leaders. Through our e-learning and community, individuals gain knowledge and skills in the 6 core competencies that is the blueprint that develops high-performing call center leaders. Successful supervisors do not just happen. So go to callcentercoach.com to learn more about enrollment and download your copy of the Supervisor Success Path ebook now.
Okay, Fast Leader Legion, today we're going to have a great discussion. We've already had one. We're going to try to make sure that we bring it on to something that you can actually participate in as well, because it's really interesting when you start thinking about, in today's world, we look at the things that are necessary in order for us to be successful. Resilience is a key, but here's the thing: we're not born with that. We're actually totally dependent on our caregivers when we're born. We have to learn how to be resilient, and Mike Watson's going to give us some great insight on how to do that in today's what we all know as our turbulent times. So Mike Watson grew up in a small smelter town in British Columbia, Canada, where the 2 biggest employers were the smelter and the local hospital. It was a fascinating environment where his dad was the head of the smelter and his best friend's dad was the head of the union representing the workers. He was heavily influenced by the blue-collar spirit of the town and its deep sports history. He's tremendously grateful for the love of his wife of 34 years and their 2 grown children and 1 granddog. Road hockey, soccer, riding with his band of hooligans on their bicycles were many things that actually influenced Mike's time growing up, but also hanging out with his family and being heavily influenced by his best friend, even still today, his older sister Cindy, who's 3 years older and who has Down syndrome. They go to frequent hockey games and have a great time together. Mike began his career as a commercial banker with TD Bank in Canada and spent time in commercial banking, private banking, branch management, and corporate banking. He refers to this time in banking as the gift of education. He left D-Bank to be the VP of a large credit union and was tasked with a complete overhaul of culture and operations, and it was not for the faint of heart. Mike's greatest accomplishment there was to capture the hearts and minds of a team who ultimately led a complete transformation of the organization, which to this day continues to thrive under that vision that was established in his time there. 15 years ago, Mike's creative and entrepreneurial spirit came calling, and he started his own consultancy to facilitate strategy and leadership development. He has become a trusted advisor of C-suite executives and companies across North America, both private and public. Mike is on a mission to change the way business is done by empowering and coaching leaders to adopt a habit of resilient leadership, or the habits of resilient leadership. His deep understanding of purpose, leadership, and strategy has guided high-performing teams through strategic execution and urgency and precision that has resulted in enterprise successes. Mike is also a critically acclaimed author who has recently published a book, Rise Up, captures parts of his experiences working with highly successful executive teams and leading them through turbulent times. His professional and personal experiences have enabled his ability to help leaders embrace the habits of resilient leadership and develop tangible actions to overcome great adversity. Mike's personal goal is to make the world a better place, one interaction at a time, and he currently calls North Vancouver home and is a proud father of 2. Mike Watson, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
Let's go, Jim. Let's go.
Man, I'm excited to chat because it was really interesting. You know, we were talking about something that I didn't find in the book that you state that as an organization you do because it's so critically important. So before we get into, talking about what is, resilient leadership and talk about the 6 habits that you say we actually absolutely must develop skill and quite frankly mastery in, tell us a little bit about what you do first and get to and uncover.
Yeah, thanks. And Jim, I got to talk about what we were chatting about before is what happens in our childhood and how absolutely critical that is to the person that we become. You started the podcast, we're not born resilient. We are dependent, and resilience comes over time. We start every interaction with a leader with what we refer to as the retrospective. Where were you born? Like, I want to know what city you were born in. I want to know about the house that you were born in, is from your absolute earliest memory. I want you to describe for us what you saw going on. And this is your memories today. It might be distorted from then, but it's what you took with you. So what was going on in that house? What are these early childhood memories that you have? Who were your siblings? Did you have siblings? Were you close? Who was your best friend? What did you do when you were absolutely a free spirit? That childhood joy when the problems didn't exist, when you were at absolute freedom. Because of course that's when you're in the state of flow in childhood, and that's what we want to recreate in adulthood. Very, very difficult, but it's got to be linked to those true inner passions. So this retrospective is absolutely essential to identifying who I am before I can embrace what I choose to be or the changes that I wish to make to become a better person.
Okay, so I want to add on that because here's one of the things that some people, I've get mixed feedback, but if they stop and really reflect upon what you just chatted about, it's one of the vital reasons that we read the bio that we do at the beginning of every Fast Leader Show interview. Because here's the other thing. If we can connect to those, it also enables other people to connect to us. Because we're always trying to find from deep within our brains and getting the whole, flight, freeze, fleas, types of mechanisms. We're always trying to find connection.
Yeah. It's so true. And it's all about relationships in the end. That's what it is. And do I trust this individual? And trust is something we earn over time. And as the leader, you're kind of you're back from the rest of the crew, and you got to earn that trust with them. And they have to connect with you. The term relatable, but I go deeper. You got to let them inside to who you are, and let them know your stories. Let them know what drives you, and let them know what's important to you. What do you value? What are your boundaries? What are the things that are most important to you in the workplace? And it's letting people in, and that vulnerability, call it what you will. But my job is to connect with you, Jim. Who are you? Where have you come from? And if I don't care about you, it's not going to work. As we get into it, I'd love to tell the story of how I learned this one the hard way in the workplace. But we probably get to that later on.
Well, and I think if we all stop and reflect, there's many of those, instances where we have, made that failure. And because otherwise, like you're saying, is that if we don't do that work, which is reciprocal, by the way, so there's a lot of reciprocity with that.
Yeah.
Is we are all going to be seen as objects.
That's it. And position. We will be seen as our position. We'll be lobbied as our position. And the part that's so sad about it is the person on the other side isn't thriving and growing to identify the best version of themselves. And so our role as leaders is so critically important, because fulfillment in life comes when we're working hard at something we're good at, that has nobility of purpose, with people we trust who trust us when we're being stretched out of our comfort zone. None of that is possible without trust. Not one part of that is possible if you don't have a trust relationship with your leader.
Most definitely. Okay, so now let's talk about rise up, leadership habits for turbulent times. And I would want to get in, your definition, your perspective, and then also maybe if you can extend that to what other people may think or misperceive in regards to what is resilient leadership.
Yeah, I'm actually going to drop the word resilient for a moment, because that's what got us into leadership development in the first place, Jim. We'd go into organizations, they'd have great strategy, and the strategy, if you look at the academic of it, but the strategy was faltering. So why? Invariably, it centered around leadership. Every single time it centered around leadership. So we got deeper into it, and we asked people, so, tell me about what you do. And they would describe the functions, the technical components of their job. They would give you a resume, but they wouldn't give you the what was really behind it. And they viewed leadership as doing that job. And what we say is that absolutely does not give you the right to call yourself a leader. Positional authority does not carry with it the term leader. Leadership is something that you earn. So it starts with the definition of leader. And a leader is someone who enables people individually and collectively to be the best versions of themselves in pursuit of something noble. It's all about the people, individually and collectively, to be the best version of themselves in pursuit of something noble. So if it's a mindset shift right out of the gates. And when you see that that is my job, now we can get into the pieces that create resilience, which really is about enhancing the individual resilience of the team of people that report through to you.
Okay. So the way that you have the book laid out, you talk about what is resilient leadership, and then you talk about motivation, and then you get into the six habits that we have to really master and work towards mastery on, which this is a big difference in regards to skill acquisition, and skill mastery. There's just a whole lot of timing and effort that goes into that. But I think what you were talking about when you were explaining leader, you started hitting the motivational piece. Is that true? So if you try to elaborate a little bit more, what we're talking about.
Motivation, what's behind it? And we had conversations like this all the time. But I'll give the example of a senior vice president we were working with. He was overlooked for the position of CEO. He had the most skills. He was clearly the most skilled person for this firm, but he was overlooked for the job. And I was asked to go in and coach him to build those skills, the soft skills that were the gap. And he sort of like, okay, fine. If that's what I need to do to get the job, then just tell me what I need to do and how I can demonstrate it, and let's just move on, because this is crap. Like, let's just get this done and move on. And I looked him in the eye, and this was a tough meeting. Okay? I'm sitting across from this guy, and the acting CEO who'd been appointed above him, who hadn't even applied for the job, was sitting in the same room. And I'm sitting there with my folder like this, and I close it up, and I said, Anthony, I said, I don't think I can help you. Because if the sole reason you're doing this is to get the next job, if you do get it, the likelihood of you sticking with these things that we've worked on is exceptionally low, because it's hard work to stay with it. So the worst case scenario might actually be you getting the job, because you will falter. So I think you want to think about why we're here and step away for a bit. Well, Jim, the faces were red and his blood pressure was elevated. He's already in a bad mental space. And I thought, that's it. I'll get invited back to this group. 5 days later, I get my phone rings, and it's him on the phone. And he says, can we talk? And I said, yeah, sure. And I went to see him, and his hands were shaking. And he started talking about his childhood, back to the childhood. And he was never good enough. And once again, he's been told, you're not good enough. And he said to me, I'm tired of being not good enough. He said, and Mike, he said, it's not about the job. It's not about the job. I want to be the best version of myself. I want it because I want my daughter to see her dad striving to be the best version of himself. I believe I can help transform this industry. And I want to be the best version of myself to transform this industry. That's motivation. Motivation must be grounded in purpose, deep purpose. And deep purpose has to be bigger than me and ego. So that's where the whole storyline around motivation is the next job or something that boosts my resume is not true motivation.
Okay, so hold on a second, because let's think about this from you can call it mindset. I mean, there's a lot of different versions of mindset. We can go back to Carol Dweck's, original, research and book around mindset. You can talk about success mindsets. You can talk about all kinds of different mindsets. But I could easily look and say, somebody saying, I'm tired of not being good enough, to me, possibly even turning that and saying, okay, the fact is, that's also rooted in humility. right? You always need to be sitting there and saying, I do need to try better. I do need to work on better, because once you stop that activity, that's called death. I'm sorry. The heart stops beating. You no longer are on that pursuit. So for me, when you tell that story, I'm like, wait a minute. It's okay to think that you're not good enough, but it depends on when you take and swing that pendulum way too far, and then it becomes a toxic scenario and you start shutting yourself down. So how do you,
but I think, that's what you're getting into, the point at which it becomes toxic.
Right.
So in this guy's case, alcoholic father, very, very negative environment. You're lousy. You have no worth. And so that gets entrenched. So when a message is sent out years later in life that you're not ready for this job, what he's hearing is you have no worth.
Got it.
And so in that case, that it's that deep psychology of it, which is toxic. That where you're going, and I love, there's some great literature coming out these days on imposter syndrome and how healthy it is. It's great to know that we're not good enough and that we can always be better. And that's this journey of life, of growth and stretching ourselves out of our comfort zone. Always. I was working with one of my colleagues. We have a saying here. It's wisdom doesn't grow on our good days. And it's up on the wall, and we embrace it because we want everyone to be pushing to that next level. And he'd had a bad day, Jim. Like, we're talking, and it wasn't a bad day. It was a bad week. And I'm chatting with him on Friday afternoon, and I look at him, and he just looks like he's been through the ringer. I says, Jordan, how you doing, brother? He says, oh, Mike, he says, I grew in wisdom this week.
Yeah, well, but that's it. I mean, you're talking about, for me, a skill, something that we need to master, is be able, especially in turbulent times, is to be able to take those, punches in the face, those getting knocked on your butt, scenarios, and saying, oh, well, I just got a dose of wisdom, right? And so I can see where it's also vital for people to, again, do that reflection and saying, oh, how are certain things associated with them? We need to get into these things. How can I prevent them from being too toxic? So in other words, trust. How can I make sure that I don't try so hard to gain trust that I actually am creating distrust, right?
Yeah. Oh, how often do we see that? I just want to be loved.
Yeah. And then the other, so like inquisitiveness, which is another attribute. How can I make sure that inquisitiveness, doesn't lead to me not being able to make a freaking decision? Right?
You know what? Now that I wish I'd consulted with you before I wrote the book, because I could see this table, the good and the bad, because every one of these things taken to the extreme can hurt you.
Absolutely.
And there's times you can trust too much. You give too much away, and it becomes a pity party, or you start to show up as a victim. Like, that's not what it's about. But you got to understand there's a dark side to these things as well. And you've nailed it. Like, on trust, you become like a patsy. You just get walked over. And in inquisitiveness, you can't make a decision. In courage, you become a bully. In all of these, there's a dark side that you got to always be waiting and conscious of, eh?
Well, and that's, to me, that's when you start talking about some of these things. And let me just list them real quick. We have the 6 skills that we need to master in order to be more resilient are trust, inquisitiveness, humility, optimism, courage, and discipline. And I want to kind of hit on these a little bit. And I think maybe it's important for us to talk about what is healthy trust and what is when it's gone a little bit too far. Because I think we've, kind of identified that as, a scenario that could occur for a lot of people. What do you mean? I'm trying to gain. So like, for example, I went through a workshop with Dr. Robert Cialdini, who's considered the godfather of the science of persuasion. And he said, here's one thing where people make the mistake in regards to building trust and rapport and all that stuff. He said, it's not about you trying to get people to like you. He goes, it's wrong. But we're always told, well, you need to be nice so they like you, right? We were conditioned to that. He said, no. He said, the key is for people to come to the realization that you like them. And I'm like, wow. Okay, workshop was almost 20 years ago. It will stick with me for 20 more until I can't think no more, or I'm, not breathing. And that's really it. So if I start talking about trust, building trust, building rapport, and doing all that, it ain't about me.
And you just hit on the absolute center point of trust. It's care. I care about you. And it's not about nice. That we've been raised, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. And I love Kim Scott's book where she says the people that are, they're so caring, they can't share the truth. And she refers to them as the ruinous empathics. And, and it's so true. So to be caring is I'm going to tell you the hard truth through my eyes or my lens or my perspective, because I believe it'll help you or it'll help the team. And it might sound brutal, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to have the courage to do it anyway. It's when it comes from a place of care, then it's the receptivity changes dramatically.
Most definitely. Okay, so
I'll jump in, Jim, with just before you flip to the next one. I did some work with the coach of Canada's men's soccer team when they were doing their qualification run for Qatar. So now they qualified for the World Cup. They're going to play for the first time in 46 years in the World Cup. Before he took on the job as the leader of the national team, he interviewed a large number of Olympic podium athletes, gold, silver, bronze. And he said, what did your coach give you that enabled you to be here? What was it the coach gave you that helped you get on the podium? And he took all of the data that he got from all of these athletes and he distilled it down to three things that was consistent amongst all of them. My coach believed in me. My coach supported me, bracketed sometimes with tough love. My coach loved me. Now, think about the workplaces that we're in, and the word love is just not used, so we substitute care because it's more acceptable in the workplace. Olympic athletes, best in the world, best on the planet, believed in me, supported me, loved me. We aspire to be great leaders. How many of us can look at our team and honestly say that they see us as believing in them, supporting them, and loving them? That's where the trust comes from.
Most definitely. Okay, so inquisitiveness. When are we getting it right? When are we off center?
Yeah, you already said it. Inquisitiveness to indecisive is wrong. I mean, it's you don't get anywhere. And the other thing about inquisitiveness is it has to be in context. So when you're working with a large organization and you got C-suite and you got front line, well, asking the front line to give their thoughts on the strategy of the organization at the highest level with all the intricacies is a sham. You know you're not going to be acting on that. That's fake inquisitiveness. And you actually set them up for disappointment. If and when there's part of your strategy that is going to impact their day-to-day lives and bringing it to life is having knowledge of what they do is critical, now you're going to be inquisitive. And you're going to go to that frontline person and you're going to say, hey, John, can you tell me about this and how it works and when it works? Because we've heard and we understand we got to do a better job of that. That's authentic inquisitiveness. It's the active curiosity to learn more about this thing for a greater good. But it can go sideways. And we've seen it in these organizations that are truly, they brand themselves as collaborative and they're group decisions. And they wonder why nothing happens. And they wonder why, with this great spirit of collaboration, people are walking around so miserable. So inquisitiveness can definitely go too far.
You talked about that movement in regards to, asking the front line about, direction of the organization. Where we find the biggest problem is when you have people on top coming down and saying, well, this is what's happening in those frontline interactions. It's like, no, it ain't.
No, it isn't. What are you talking about? That has nothing to do with the reality that I face day in and day out. You focus on the salespeople and do so much there, and they know a whole different reality than the senior vice president knows. And we got to hear them.
That's right. And so that's where the people who are in that, power position, need to make sure that their inquisitiveness is not, placated or infiltrated with, this delusion, right?
Yeah.
They have to be that, one that is actually going to take in and value those people if they want to be trusted for their insight and input, and just and therefore make the appropriate decisions based off on that.
Like banking, large charter bank, 40,000 plus employees, and there was a time when one of the vice chairs, their executive VPs, came out and it was going to meet with some high potential folks, and in hindsight, I know what was going on in the late 90s. It was all about collaboration. That was the book of the day. And this initiative was to go out and have people feel they were heard. Well, it was set up as, what do they call it? A coffee talk with the EVP, and you're sitting with, you're the high potential employee, and you're sitting around the table and, what do you think we're doing right? What do you think we're doing wrong? And gave me this pretense that we actually had some input into the direction of the bank. And it had a double whammy effect. First off, nothing happened, because of course nothing's going to happen. And the second thing is, we left there dismayed and chagrined, and it just was, the morale actually went down as a result of this initiative, because it was following this thread of, you got to create collaboration to win. Well, what's the dark side? And it's this, you got to get back to the authentic.
Most definitely. Okay, so humility. When are we getting it right? When have we swung off kilter?
Yeah, humility, when it becomes modesty, it's gone too far. It wasn't me, it was all them. They did everything. Oh, crap. Come on. If you're not leading, if things are going great, I'm going to look at the leader and I'm going to see great job, because you inspired a group of people to do a great job. If it's going lousy, I'm going to go look at the leader and I'm going to say lousy job, because you inspired a bunch of people to do a lousy job. Humility done wrong is when you deflect all attention away from you, or you just refuse to accept that you play a role in it, at least in your dialogue, because that's fake. That it just isn't real. It's a deep, deep inner confidence of who I am and what is my role, and an absolute profound belief that I can't succeed alone. So my attention for the good of the enterprise shifts from me to the people around me to help them grow. That's positive humility. Modesty is, it's not about me, don't worry, and I didn't do any of that. You guys did all of that. No, we each played our role, and you did yours really, really well, and I'm really happy for you. That's what we're talking about in humility.
Okay, so you say something that you said, I'm really happy for you, right? I've with the things that I have learned and the skin knees and all that stuff, I no longer, especially to my kids, say that I'm proud of them, because it is, to me, if you start looking at pride, that's about me, right? Yes. They need to be proud of themselves. They're the ones who carried the weight. They're the ones who navigated. Yeah, maybe I was helping, to support, sometimes not. But it's not about me. And if I say that I'm proud, then therefore I'm taking away their glory. I'm taking away their sweat, and discounting it. That's just the way I feel. And I've had other people say different, but I don't say that I'm proud of them. I say I'm happy for you, because you know what? It's their identity. But I do tell them on the flip side, hey, if you misbehave, what's your last name? Do you want to keep it?
Well, yeah, no, you got to have some fun with it. But I'm so glad you picked up on the term, Jim. I really am, because it is very deliberate. And you're right. Yeah, I'm proud of you. It's putting it about me, and I'm not going to repeat it all. But it's such a critical thing. Everything in our mindset has to be about enabling them to be the best versions. I am really happy for the pride you must feel right now.
And you should.
About them.
And you should. And I even will say that is like, you know what? You came through. You should be proud of yourself.
Exactly.
So
what an accomplishment.
Very much so. I think that helps to, get them more strength in their own identity and knowing where they stand, which goes back into how do you build resilience? I know where I stand, right? Mm-hmm. So that when I do get hit, maybe I don't get knocked down because I can handle it, right? So I appreciate you going down that path. Okay, so courage.
Courage, this is courage of conviction, not stupidity. What's the flip side? Reckless. The entrepreneurial hubris, we can do this, no problem, we're good, it's going to go. And you start to lose your peripheral vision. And courage is about when your gut is talking to you. And our guts talk to us a lot. And we spend a lot of time using the academic self and not the emotional self. And our gut tells us stories all the time. And I use the example of the Me Too movement. If more of us had courage to speak what was in our gut in the moment, that movement would never have been required. And I'm thinking about early in my career when I worked in misogynistic environments and I didn't say a word. And I actually became part of the problem because it was the culture, it was the prevalent culture. But if someone in a leadership role had ever said, whoa, that's not on. That's just not on for me. And it's not insulting the person that did it. They're good people. They're misguided. Oh, hang on. And maybe I should approach this a little differently. It's that courage to speak up when you need to speak up. And I'll use an example in the business setting. One of our old clients, who's now the CEO of the Vancouver International Airport Authority, Tamara Vrooman, she had taken over Van City, 50 branch credit union, 500,000 members, so a large institution. And she came in during the financial crisis of 2007. That was her first job as CEO, was just as the crisis hit. And the organization made a decision that they had to increase the rate of interest across the board on all floating rate interest loans by 0.5%. So, I mean, you're talking 0.5% on the average loan of $20,000. It's not a big sum of money. And the academic was, it's not a big sum of money. We need it to survive. People need us to survive. They'll be fine with it. Well, they weren't, because we made a deal. And the deal was this rate, not that rate. And you've not given me a chance or a choice here. You got me locked down. It's not fair. And she initially went along with the recommendation and with not only the support of, but the pressure of the board. And here she is 4 months, 5 months into her job, and it just didn't sit with her. She talked to members, she knew how they felt, and she knew they were right. She had the courage to put it on the line and say, I can't do it. I can't stay here if we don't reverse this. It's wrong. It's just wrong. And courage is when there's consequence, and you do it anyway.
Very much so. Okay, discipline.
Discipline really gets to the root of resilience at that individual level. And I mean, you're more of an expert in this, Jim, for sure than I am. But the discipline is to exercise. This is at the individual level. Nutrition, exercise, sleep, meditation, healthy living, moderation is absolutely essential. Self-discipline is moderating our state, our psychological state from I'm really high or I'm really low, because that creates a lot of problems for people. You can't be resilient if they can't come to you and know the version of you they're going to get, because it's that communication that enables corporate resilience. That's one of the things that enables corporate resilience. If I don't have the discipline to stay within a set band of temperament, it's going to be really hard for people to come to me. So that's a discipline. It's a habit, because you got to form it. I look in the mirror and I look at somebody with clinical depression. So you can imagine my cyclical swings. They're really broad. I know I can't be effective as a leader if I show up that way because they don't know what version they're getting of me. So it's a discipline for me. I must exercise. I must see my counselor. I must talk to my family about it. I must do these things. And I must be very disciplined about it because the result is it narrows the band of temperament swings, which makes me a much, much better leader. The other piece of disciplines, that's the self-discipline. The next piece is discipline as relating to accountability. And we agreed we would do this. We must have accountability for it and be disciplined as a team, as individuals, to do what we said we would do each and every time. And so if we create a strategy and there's a tactic and it's assigned to you, Jim, and you said you'd do it by September the 30th, I'm going to hold you accountable for that. I must hold you accountable for that because the rest of the team depends on that. And if it's okay for you to push that down the road, you're actually hurting yours and our resilience. Now, if you come and have the date change because it's impossible, a different story. But to show up and not have it done isn't okay. So that's a small example of enterprise discipline, which I would translate through to accountability.
Well, and even for me, when you start talking about accountability, I have, a different perspective, much like the whole pride and being proud thing is accountability should be an individual scenario, right? I'm holding myself accountable. But unfortunately in society, what we have done is we flipped it a little bit and made it sound like I'm going to put my hands around your neck and I'm going to hold you accountable.
Yeah, you're right about that.
That doesn't work for anybody. No one wants to be in that environment. I mean, what we want them to voluntarily and proactively and diligently say is I'm going to hold myself accountable because I am part of a group. I'm part of this team. I'm part of this tribe. I'm part of this community. I'm part of this organization, whatever, and then therefore this is my part, like you were talking about. Play your part, deliver. That's the expectation.
I want to flip this one back with a question to you because this is one that I still wrestle with. And I agree with you. Absolutely. The greatest place to be is where people hold themselves accountable.
Correct.
What experiences have you had or what would the science tell you, Jim, about the best way to create that environment? How do you create that environment where people makes themselves accountable?
Well, it's like with many things, it's you modeling it yourself. So I'm going to hold myself accountable. I'm going to share with you and tell you that I'm going to hold myself accountable. And then therefore I'll reveal, when and why I haven't. And then therefore the consequences of that. And then when everybody starts being able to take that, and sometimes I've had people, say that we're going to do an oath, we're going to have a governance, we're going to have and everybody commits to that. And sometimes it's even gone as far as signing agreements. We're going to agree to one another and sign this contract that boom, 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 I will be accountable to myself so that therefore I can deliver and support you, support you and your efforts on what you're doing. So there's a lot of different tactics. Some of them may say, well, that really doesn't have any meaning to it. But, if you hold it up as a ritual and a process and are constantly focusing in on it, that we all have to do our part. We all are accountable. People do deliver to that. They want to be part of that because they know what happens on the back end. We get the results that we're striving for. I can see the accomplishment. It's not easy. None of this stuff is easy.
No, it's not easy. That's why we call it habits, because you got to work hard at it. And we do have times when we slip. It's repeating. What you're talking about, this commitment to one another, I'm going to take that away. I love these calls because I learned so much on them. But I'm going to take that one away for sure. And it reminds me, and I think this is more of a happy accident that we did it this way than science-based, Jim. But when we were working with the men's soccer team and we're working with the players, and you've got to be so in sync as a team if you're going to compete on the world stage. And the coach wanted, and he knew that they needed a code of conduct, which is their values, their value system, their level of self-discipline. This is how I will behave. This is my commitment to the team. And so we brought this group of leaders together and they came up with these 3 statements and they called it the code of the shirt. And if you're going to wear this shirt, you have to adhere to this. We are brothers. And that means I'll defend you to the death. We are brothers. And I can be mad at you, but God help anyone else that comes after you. We are brothers. Second one is we fear nothing. This is a little Canadian niceness. We're always defensive and I'm sorry. You'll step on my foot and I'll say I'm sorry. That's a bit of Canadian. And they talked about always with the shield, but never with the sword. Well, if you're going to win in sports, you got to be front foot, back foot, front foot, back. So we fear nothing. And if we get into a skirmish, we're into a skirmish. That's what we fear nothing is, whatever that may be. And the last is we stand on guard, and that links to the in this case their purpose, a new Canada, and really wrapping themselves in the flag. But they embraced this, and this is what brought the story back. You talked about culture and belonging. This became the culture, and they all want to belong. We all do. But they helped each other, like each person held himself accountable, and others created consequence if they didn't, because they didn't belong. It was a fascinating environment, and the success was just monumental.
Yeah, and it seems simple, but it is not. Okay, so I'm looking here. You have Rise Up, the book. You're doing the work from a coach perspective. You have things that you're doing from a family perspective. You shared some of the stories and how you spend time with your sister and go to hockey games, and I'm sure there's a lot more other special times like that. But what is one of your goals that you can share?
It might sound trite. I really want to be the best version of myself. I've been given some gifts, and I want to look back and say, I have really strived to be the best version of myself, best for my kids, best for my spouse, best for the people that I work with. And that will lead us to where it leads us. I have some goals for the business, but that's not the goals for me. They're in sync with one another, but they're not the same. And in the end, when I approach my last days, I want to be able to look at my kids and know that they're thriving in life and proud of who they are, and living psychologically healthy lives. To me, that's the great journey. So best me, best them.
And the Fast Leader Legion wishes you the very best. All right, here we go, Fast Leader Legion. It's time for the Hump Day Hoedown. Okay, Mike, the Hump Day Hoedown is a part of our show where you give us good insights fast. So I'm going to ask you several questions, and your job is to give us rapid and succinct responses to help us move onward and upward faster. Mike Watson, are you ready to hoe down?
Let's go.
All right. So what is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
Fear.
Absolutely. What is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
Tell people what you want to accomplish, why you want to accomplish it, and ask them for their help.
And what would be one book you can recommend to our Legion that could be from any genre?
Deep Purpose, recently written by Ron G. Galati. I'm going to put it as one of the top 2-3 books that I have ever read, all about meaning and purpose.
Okay, Fast Leader Legion, you can find links to that and other bonus information from today's show by going to fastleader.net and doing a search for Mike Watson, W-A-T-S-O-N. Okay, Mike, this is my last Hump Day Hold On question. Imagine you've been given the opportunity to go back to the age of 25 and you can take the knowledge and skills that you have now back with you, but you can't take it all. You can only take one. So what skill or piece of knowledge would you take back with you and why?
Build trust. Build trust. It's all about the people. In those days, I was caught up in the positional authority, and I thought that status was so important to me. And I didn't realize how critical relationships were. And I would have put a lot more time and attention into building authentic relationships with the people around me.
Mike, I had a fun time chatting with you. How does the Fast Leader Legion get in touch with you?
You can get hold of me directly at mwatson@ignitemanagement.ca.
Mike, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom and helping us all get over the hump.
Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.